I'm all sweaty. It was so hot today. But anyways, this is the first time I'm going to be doing this type of video because this is the first time I've been on booktube for half a year. There's this thing called a mid-year book tag, I believe. This is gonna be a mix of that, and also I'm just giving you guys like my mid-year reading wrap up. It's gonna be, I think, on this side, like I'm gonna put a thing where I just scroll through my Goodreads list of the books I've read this year. So it is currently June 22nd. This video might be coming out a bit late. I don't really know how many people have put out their mid-year book tag reading wrap-ups yet, but I saw a few, so I just decided to film mine now. This might come out in July. I read 43 books so far. My goal is to read 50 this year, so I'm obviously very close. So if I could read like 100 books this year, I would be very impressed with myself, but I kind of doubt it, honestly. I'm sort of on the slow side when it comes to reading. The only reason I've read so many books is because it's basically all I do in my free time. Like whenever I feel like reading, I read. Whenever I have free time, I read. I read on my phone. I listen to audiobooks sometimes when I'm in reading slumps. I think that's the reason why I'm able to read so much. But I'm just gonna do like a quick mid-year wrap-up, tell you guys all the books that I've read this year, and you'll see the ratings on this side of the screen and you'll see the names and the covers and stuff, so it'll take me less time to edit. Okay, here we go. First up, we have Ruthless Vows, The Storied Life of AJ Fickery, Powerless, The Darkest Minds, This Time It's Real, This Savage Song, The Titan's Curse, The Battle of the Labyrinth, The Last Olympian, Our Dark Duet, Gallant, A Darker Shade of Magic, Gathering of Shadows, Foxhole Court, A Conjuring of Light, The Raven King, Kingsman, Captive Prince, Prince's Gambit, King's Rising, More Than We Can Tell, Call It What You Want, The Summer Palace, Red, White, and Royal Blue, The Boy Who Steals Houses, Cubicle Girl's Guide to Tea and Tomorrow, Turtles All the Way Down, Defy the Night, Imogen Obviously, The Diviners, 1,000 Perfect Notes, Night of the Dragon, Binding 13, Before the Coffee Gets Cold, Fable, Vampire Academy, One Dark Window, Sunreach, Redawn, Evershore, Defiant, Not Even Monsters, and Only Ashes Remain. That is 43 books. Okay, and so now we will be getting into the mid-year book tag. There are multiple books for a lot of these questions because I'm indecisive. Also, I might be running around the room a lot. I'm gonna be grabbing the books on my bookshelf if I need them for the question because, again, it's less work for me to edit if I just show you guys the books in person. Most of the time I'm just too lazy to get them, but today I'm gonna try to do it because I'm sort of busy this week, so we're gonna try to do my best. Maybe this will give me some exercise. So the first question is best book you've read so far in 2024. I have 2 series and then 2 standalones for this first question. Again, I'm really indecisive, so there's like multiple books for a lot of these questions. So the first one is The Foxhole Court, The Raven King, and The King's Men by Nora Sakovic. Okay, when I think of best book I've read this year, I don't think it's the best written. I just enjoyed these the most out of all the books I've read. Out of all 3 of these, I rate this series like a 5 out of 5. Still haven't read The Sunshine Court yet, but I think I like The Raven King the most, mostly because we fully got to see like Andrew and Neil's relationship sort of developing. But this entire series is so great. I can't believe I read this year, actually. I was kind of surprised when I like was looking through all the books I read the first half of this year, and I almost forgot that I read these this year. It feels like I've known these books for like forever, but I haven't. It's only been 6 months, which is crazy. So basically we have our main character Neil. He's on the run, and then one day he kind of just wants to stop running. This coach offers him a position on this XC team in college, and it's a very infamous XC team. It's known to be like made up of people who have gone through something traumatic in their lives or have something going on in their lives. And so he meets these people, they develop like found family, and then there's a subplot romance, which I absolutely love, and I'm in love with all these characters. I'm in love with the found family, and I'm especially in love with the romance. Next ones we have are This Savage Song and Our Dark Duet by V.E. Schwab. I love this duology so much. When I read this first book, I first rated it a 4.25 out of 5, but then I just kept thinking about it and I couldn't stop and I couldn't read anything else until I bought the second book and had it in my hands, and I'm just like, okay, maybe this is a 5-star after all. And this ending like ripped me apart, but I absolutely loved it. It's probably one of my favorite books to come out of this year, which I guess is the whole point of this first question. So we have a human and a monster. The human is Kate and the monster is August. One day they both kind of get into trouble. They team up. There's obviously this romance that happens between them, and they kind of have to solve their problems together. They just get to know each other and develop this very special relationship, I feel like, despite the fact that they're supposed to be enemies. And then the final 2 books we have for this first question is The Boy Who Steals Houses and 1,000 Perfect Notes, both by C.G. Drews. C.G. Drews is such a good writer. This first book is about a boy who doesn't have the best family, and so he's kind of on the run. He's been living in different houses that have sort of been abandoned or don't have people in them at the moment, and he collects the keys of each house that he's lived in until one day he meets this family and this girl who kind of changes life help him. And then we have 1,000 Perfect Notes, which is about a boy named Beck, and his mother used to be a very famous pianist until something happened to her and she wasn't able to play the piano anymore, and so she's kind of forced like her dream on Beck. It's a very abusive household he lives in, and the only reason he stays is because he doesn't want his sister Joey to be forced into the legacy that his mother wants him to be in. These were both so well written. I rated this one 5 out of 5 immediately, and then this one took me a while, but then I just kept thinking about this book and I'm just like, oh my god, this was so great. I can't not rate it a 5 out of 5. Next question we have is best sequel you've read so far in 2024. This one was an easy one to answer actually, and the only book I have in this question is A Gathering of Shadows by youve. This trilogy was so great, but this was the best book out of the trilogy in my opinion. Immediately after I finished this, I'm just like, oh my god, 5 out of 5. The romance in this was top tier. The fight scenes, the magic that was described in this book. Also, V.E. Schwab's writing is just so good in general. So basically we have our two main characters, Kel and Lila, and there are different sort of Londons in this world that are kind of like different dimensions, and only certain magicians like Kel can travel to those different Londons. And one day Kel kind of gets in trouble and he has to team up with Lila to solve his problem. And then in the second book there's a tournament that happens where Lila becomes very involved. It's really hard to explain actually if you haven't read the first book, because I don't really want to spoil it for you guys, but there's like a tournament aspect in this book that I wasn't expecting and I really enjoyed it. And then the romance in this book was so great because they were apart and then they had to reunite in this book, and then once they reunited it was just over for me. Next question we have is new release you haven't read yet but want to. So first one we have for this question is The Sunshine Court by Nora Sakovic. My copy got ruined in the mail. Like, can you see that? There's creases on this and I was honestly kind of mad, but it's still readable, so I'm not that mad. The Sunshine Court is in, I'm so sorry if I pronounce his name wrong. Someone told me it was kind of like it's pronounced John in a way, but French. I took French for 12 years, so I don't know why I'm struggling with this so much, but it's pronounced John in a way, French. So Jean or something like that. He is a boy who went through so much in the first 3 books of the trilogy, and he's kind of broken. It's his healing journey in this book, I believe. I think there's a relationship between him and a guy named Jeremy that was introduced in the previous trilogy, and I'm so excited because apparently Nora Sakovic changed Jeremy's hair where it was bleached, and so Sunshine Court, bleached hair Jeremy, a sunshine for Jean. Next one we have for this question is How to End a Love Story by Yuling Huang. I heard somewhere that this was the screenwriter for Emily Henry's movies. Her books are being turned into movies, and so this is the screenwriter for her. I don't know what this book is about at all, but I just really wanted to read it because the author is Asian, and also this cover is gorgeous. Like, it's pink. Pink is my favorite color, and I just could not get it. Actually, I think this is a romance between screenwriters, which is kind of funny because obviously the author is a screenwriter herself, so that's kind of interesting. Then the final book we have for this question is Funny Story by Emily Henry. Emily Henry is one of those authors where she's kind of iffy for me. It's not like I've hated her books, but I also haven't absolutely loved them. I still have 2 other books by her to read, including this one. I don't know, I'm hoping to get it finished before this summer ends. Next question we have is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. Okay, so all of these are obviously unreleased, right? And I kind of struggled to come up with some I knew were coming out in next year because I don't really pay attention to that, if I'm being honest. I'm a very much in the moment sort of person. I don't really look into too much about like which books will be released in the future, and the only reason I know which books are released in certain months is because I go to the bookstore a lot, and so I see them right that moment. I'm just like, oh, I didn't know that released at all. So I have 4 books underneath this question. The first one is one I actually pre-ordered very early, and it was Somewhere Beyond the Sea by TJ Klune, and it's the second book in this particular series, I believe, and it's in Arthur's POV. And the reason why I'm so excited for this one is because I loved Arthur in the main book so much. He was absolutely my favorite character, and he was so sweet. And I don't know, I just can't wait to see the story through his eyes because, again, he was my favorite character. Obviously, there was something special about him in the first book, which I can't tell you guys unless you've read it, but I just can't wait to see how exactly he felt keeping that secret from everyone. Second one is Make My Wish Come True by Rachel Lippincott and Alison Derrick. I believe this is coming out in October. Somewhere Beyond Sea is also coming out in October. A lot of these releases actually underneath this question come out in October. So Make My Wish Come True is a sapphic Christmas romance novel. And the reason why I'm so excited was because I love She Gets the Girl by Rachel Lippincott and Alison Derrick. It was absolutely one of my favorite romances and one of the only romances I've ever rated like a 5 out of 5. Also, apparently Rachel Lippincott and Alison Derrick are married in real life, and their stories that they write together are kind of like the stories about themselves in a way. And I figured that out like when I first got She Gets the Girl, and it made me so happy, and I'm so excited for this one. one because I think they work together really, really well. Like the first time I tried reading a book that was only by Rachel Lipcott or only by Alison Derrick, I couldn't get into it as easily as I did with She Gets the Girl. Like I feel like they write so well together and it's very readable. It's very easygoing. Next one we have is Don't Let the Forest In by C.G. Drews. C.G. Drews absolutely became one of my favorite authors this year. I believe this is their first horror novel, and I don't know, all I know is that the relationship is between two guys and I'm just really excited for that. But also I'm like very interested in the horror aspect of this book because the first book they wrote was obviously like kind of like emotional reads in a way, so I'm just wondering if this is also going to be like an emotional read or if it's mainly going to be like a horror book. We'll see, I guess. And then the last one we have in this question is Unraveled by Shannon Messenger, and I believe this is book 9.5 in the Keeper of the Lost City series, which is crazy. And this is going to be in Keith's POV, and I absolutely love Keith. He was one of my favorite characters in that series. It's about his time in when he lived in like the human city. So Keeper of the Lost Cities is set in this other world filled with magical creatures and stuff, and so this is Keith's time in the human world. And Shannon Messenger does a lot of like polls on her Instagram account, and we kind of get some decision on what's going to be in her next books, so that's really exciting. I think all these books come out in October. I'm way too consistent. That is kind of scary actually. Okay, next question we have is Biggest Disappointment. So I have two books for this one. Kind of controversial, I feel like. The first one is Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. So when I first read this book, I rated it a 4 out of 5, but the thing is, I was so tempted to rate it a 3 out of 5, but I was also kind of biased towards the characters because I loved Iris and Roman so much that I couldn't bring myself to rate it below that. But it was definitely a disappointment. I think I've said this over and over again, but it felt like a very cliche fantasy ending. The first book in this series was so unique and so creative, and then the second book just came out and it was kind of flat in my opinion. It felt very similar to other fantasy books I've read, which I really wasn't expecting with this duology for some reason. I still liked it. It just was very surprising how underwhelming it was. Then the second book we have for this question, please don't come after me, it's Powerless by Lauren Roberts. Oh, I forgot to get my physical books for this question. They're on the shelf. I have them. Whoops. This is gonna be some editing for me to do. But anyways, Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I think I got swept up in the hype, I guess. I think I heard too much about this book before I read it, and so I was expecting too much in a way. But also, I think the writing style just wasn't for me because I felt like everything was very repetitive. Like the romance, the eye contact was constant, okay? It was repeated over and over again, and I'm just like, okay, I get it. Every time they walk into a room, they notice each other's eyes. Like, I get it. Seriously, you can stop mentioning it. Also, the fight scenes were very repetitive, and so that kind of made me feel like the romance was an escape mechanism. I think I've said this over and over again. You guys are so tired of it. Okay, next one we have is Biggest Surprise I've had this year, in a good way and not in a bad way. Biggest Disappointment was in a bad way. Biggest Surprise is in a good way. So the first one is Not Even Bones by Rebecca Schaefer. Look at me. I remembered to bring my physical copy. This was a big surprise because I read somewhere it was being compared to like This Savage Song by E. Schwab, and I love that duology so much. So I kind of, I guess, assumed in a way that I would like this one less. In a way I did, but also in a way I didn't. I really liked this, and I was really surprised because it was kind of gory. There was a lot of cutting up body parts, a lot of blood. So basically we have our main character Nita. She works for her mother and cuts off the body parts of magical creatures in a way. People in this world who have magic and powers are called unnaturals, and so she cuts off the body parts of the unnaturals, and then her and her mother end up selling those body parts on the black market. And obviously the concept is very interesting, right? This was just a really big surprise to me because I didn't expect to like it as much as I did, and I guess the plot twist near the ending, it really got me. Like, I wasn't expecting it whatsoever. Next we have, oh god, I have to move again, Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh. I think I've said over and over again that I was really surprised how much I ended up liking this book. I rated it 4.25 out of 5, and I also didn't expect to rate it that high. I didn't expect to like the relationship in this book because, not gonna lie, some of the people were right. Height in this book was mentioned a lot, and people kept complaining about that, and I thought I would be one of those people who complained about that because I know I said for Powerless that it was very repetitive, and in this one, her height constantly being brought up, also obviously very repetitive. I might be sounding like such a hypocrite right now. So the relationship is between Johnny and Shannon. Johnny is kind of set to go pro in the rugby field after he graduates from college, until one day he meets Shannon, and then his world kind of comes toppling down. He's like, oh my god, what do? I'm so in love with this girl. I don't know if I can leave. And then Shannon lives in a very abusive household. Her father abuses her very much, and then her mother refuses to leave. I really want to jump into this book every single time I read any scene of her at her house with her father. I want to jump into this book and punch that man in the face myself. And then the final books we have for this question is The Skyward Novellas by Brandon Sanderson and Jancy Patterson, Sunreach, Read On, and Evershore. All three novellas I'm putting under this question because I did not expect to like these novellas so much. Like, I absolutely love them. They're probably one of my favorite parts of this series, and again, they're novellas, and there's like 4 other main books in this series, but honestly, if I had to rank them, it would be the first book and then literally all the novellas and then the rest of it underneath. So our first novella is in the perspective of a girl named FM. She is kind of helping to figure out how to work the technology to defeat their enemies. It's kind of set in space and humanity is on the brink of extinction and they're being attacked by aliens, and so they're forced to become pilots to fight back against those aliens who are attacking them. And then Redon is in the perspective of an alien named Alanique, and she's trying to gain an alliance with the humans. And then this last one, Evershore, is in the perspective of a guy named Jorgen. Something bad happens at the end of the second book that I can't tell you guys about, and so he kind of has to deal with it in this third book, and he kind of freaks out a lot, but he figures it out eventually. Next question is new favorite author. I only added one, but then I remembered another one, so technically there's two for this one. It's V.E. Schwab and C.G. Drews. I already showed you guys books by them before, but V.E. Schwab, I read them for the first time this year. I think I read 5 books by them in the month of February, March, and it was crazy because some of their books are so long, but I loved every single moment of it. And then C.G. Drews, obviously. Oh my god, the writing is so good. Honestly, instant buy author for me. I will buy any single book they write in seconds. Next question we have is newest favorite character. In Sunreach, we got introduced to FM's perspective, and she honestly became one of my absolute favorite characters this year. But she was like very much the soft girl type. Also, I really liked her romance in this book, and I also liked the way the romance progressed in her eyes, because it was like when the guy fell for her, it seemed like she fell harder. And also, she's just such a nice person. She's so kind, so nice to animals, very sunshiny when she's around the animals, and so cute, and I absolutely fell in love with her when I read this book. Next question we have is book that made you cry. I only had one book this year that made me cry, and it was this one. I was crying at 12 a.m. in the morning when I finished this book. Tears were streaming down my face while I was laying down in my bed, and I was like, oh my god, what the hell happened? This ending is kind of tragic, not gonna lie. Most of the things that happen in this book are tragic. They also make you strangely happy. C.G. Drews is brutal, okay? Their books make you so happy, but also it's so sad at the same time. I don't really know how to explain it. You guys just have to go read it for yourself. I genuinely recommend all of their books. Please go read them. Next one we have is book that made you happy. I don't have the physical copy of this because I borrowed it from the library online, but I don't really have too many books that made me happy this year, not gonna lie. I've been reading a lot of depressing books lately, but I think the only one that I remember like being sort of happy throughout the whole way is Imogen, obviously, by Becky Albertalli. So it's about this girl named Imogen. She is known to be like the straight friend within her group, like the very supportive straight friend, and she's friends with like a bunch of homosexuals until one day she goes to visit her friend at her college and she meets this girl named Tessa, and then Imogen starts to question everything. She's like, oh my god, am I actually straight or am I bi? She's trying to figure out her sexuality with this whole book, and I related to her so much because I went through like the same journey when I was figuring out my sexuality and everything. The fact that she's bi and the fact that she was like so in denial in the beginning, I could really relate to her character, and I don't know why, but relating to a character that sort of went through the same thing that I did, it made me so happy for some reason. Also, the romance in this book was so cute because her and Tessa were so great. Next one we have is most beautiful book you've bought so far this year. I don't really remember all of the books I bought this year, if I'm being honest, other than like these 2 piles that are with me right now. I think I'm just gonna go through these 2 piles and then choose like one that I think is gorgeous. Okay, so I literally bought this book because I thought the cover was gorgeous, and it's Forget Me Not by Alison Derrick. Like, look at this, like the flowers, the artwork, and then also the back. The back is so cute too, like with the suitcase, and what are those? Are those Polaroid pictures, I think? I'm not sure. And then I think another one I really like is this one. I really like this cover art. Like, isn't it pretty? It looks so painted, and I love the painted look. Oh, and we're on our last question. So the last question is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? How to Get Up Again. So Happy Place and People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry, I actually want to read before this summer ends because obviously they give off very summery reads, and normally I'm not the type that like reads depending on which season comes up, but these ones I think is pretty obvious that you kind of want to read them in the summer. The thing is, I've heard obviously very mixed opinions about this one, but then this one I've been hearing mixed opinions on lately, and when this first came out I just heard the best things about it, and so I wasn't nervous, but now I've been getting like mixed opinions from other people, and so now I'm kind of nervous. I'll definitely get to them sometime. Maybe I'll do like a reading vlog with both of them. Also, funny story, because I still need to read that one too. So it is I Hope This Doesn't Find You by Anne Liang. I want to read this one before this year ends because I know Anne Liang is coming out with so many books near the end of the year, and then next year I heard this gives off like very Largene coded, and I wasn't the biggest fan of To All the Boys I Loved Before, to be honest, but I was a big fan of like Largene's aesthetic sort of. Also, I really love Anne Liang's romances. Anne Liang is like one of those instant buy authors for me. I don't know, I'm just hoping to get this finished before this year ends, but if I don't, honestly, I'm not that pressured. And then the last one we have for this question is, I don't have a physical copy of it because I don't really read this genre too much, but I'm hoping to read it before this year ends because I believe it's getting like a movie adaptation, and it's A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. So obviously I think we've all heard at this point Netflix is adapting this into a movie or a show, I'm not sure, but the girl who plays Enid in Wednesday is acting as the main character, and I watched the trailer and it looked really good, and so it got me very interested in reading the book. And normally I'm not the biggest mystery reader, but I definitely want to give this one a chance before the movie comes out because I love the cast of that movie, even if I don't know like the exact vibe they've given off in the book. But I love the cast, and so I kind of want to read the book, kind of compare before it comes out. And I think that's gonna be all for today. It's kind of late and I was hoping to continue reading the book I'm currently reading right now. I'm gonna end the video off here. I hope you guys enjoyed. Leave down in the comments, I don't know, I'm just gonna choose a random question here for you guys to answer. The best book you've read so far in 2024. Please leave it down so maybe I can read it because I always love seeing your guys' recommendations. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.